Okay, think about this for a second. A letter, maybe a package you ordered online, it just shows up at your door.
Seems pretty simple, right? Almost
Yeah,
automatic.
exactly. But underneath that, especially for something like the U.S. Postal Service, there's this huge, incredibly complex system and, well, a lot of human effort involved.
Absolutely. It's a massive operation.
So today, we're going to dive deep into that complexity. We're focusing on one specific place,
Hmm.
the Kansas City, Kansas Processing and Distribution Center, the PNDC. It's closed now, but its story is really revealing.
Hmm.
Our mission here is to kind of unpack its whole journey, its history, the operational headaches it faced, the folks who work
It's a
there,
dedication, yeah, but also the tough parts, like the injuries they dealt with.
right, and the specialized support that exists for them. Because this isn't just about a building, is it? It's about the people and the processes behind moving our mail.
It really is. The human side of logistics.
And we've got a good stack of sources for this historical stuff. Union statements, injury data, specific reports, lots to pull from.
Yeah, should give us some key insights, maybe even a few surprises about what it takes to run this kind of system.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. The KCK-PNDC, 5215 Richland Avenue.
Yep, in KCK. It was a decent-sized facility, about 105,000 square feet. The USPS started leasing it way back in 1985.
And for years, decades really, was the main hub for processing mail for all of Northeast Kansas.
Things change, technology evolves, and, well, its story includes that clash with modernization.
So it wasn't just about age.
Not entirely, but age was a big factor. By the 2000s, USPS leadership saw it as, well, outdated.
How so?
Their words were old and spread over multiple floors. And in modern logistics, that's just inefficient. Think about moving heavy mail carts up and down.
Right, compared to a newer single-story plant designed for flow.
Exactly. And adding to that, there was this other PNDC just across the state line in Kansas City, Missouri, 1700 Cleveland Avenue.
Newer one.
Relatively new, yeah. And critically, it had extra capacity, room to take on more work.
Okay, so you've got an older, less efficient plant here and a newer one with space over there. Seems like an obvious move, maybe.
Well, obvious on paper, perhaps. But closing a facility, moving operations, that's never simple. There are jobs, community impact.
True. So how did it play out?
It really came to a head in June 2007. The USPS held a public hearing
Where was that?
at the Jack Reardon Convention Center. And their proposal was clear. Consolidate KCK's mail processing into the KC, Missouri facility.
And their justification.
Efficiency, productivity. They pointed to falling first-class mail volumes, less letter mail, basically.
And the better tech in Missouri, I assume.
Yep, the newer machines, better layout. And they made assurances about the workforce.
The 301 employees.
Right. They promised most would be reassigned to the Missouri plant, trying to minimize actual layoffs. That was the official line, anyway.
But I imagine that efficiency argument wasn't universally accepted.
Oh, definitely not. That's where you see the tension, right? Modernization goals versus the local human impact.
So what happened after the hearing?
Well, they gathered the public input, did their internal review, an area mail processing study, they call it, and ultimately USPS decided to go ahead with the consolidation.
When did the move actually happen?
The mail operations transfer was finished by early June 2009, June 5th, to be precise.
And the KCK building itself?
It was fully decommissioned, basically emptied out and cleaned up, and returned to the owner on January 6, 2010. That was effectively the end.
And that left just Wichita?
Just Wichita as the only mail processing plant left in the entire state of Kansas.
Wow. That's a big change.
It really is. And it's relevant even today. Just this year, 2024, postal unions are raising hell about any talk of potentially moving Wichita's operations out of state, too.
So the KCK closure still echoes.
Absolutely. It highlights the long-term consequences for service in Kansas. And interestingly, KCK was actually one of the earlier big PNDC closures in that wave. There was one in Marina, California, back in 2005, but KCK was definitely near the front of that nationwide trend.
A sign of things to come, really.
You could say that, yeah.
And you mentioned the unions being concerned. Let's talk about that human element, the workforce. They had union representation.
Oh, yes, strong representation. You had the APWU, the American Postal Workers Union. Their greater Kansas City metro area, Local 67, covered the clerks and maintenance folks.
Leaders like Antoinette Robinson, Darcy Wood.
That's right, President Robinson and Chief Stewart Wood. And then for the mail handlers, you had the National Postal Mail Handlers Union, NPMHU, Local 297, led by President Chris Bentley.
And their role went beyond just wages and hours, I assume.
Absolutely. They advocated on everything from workplace safety, staffing levels, and, yes, fiercely opposing the closure itself.
But what was their argument against the consolidation?
They argued that this drive for efficiency could actually end up hurting customers by, slowing down the mail. It wasn't just about jobs for them, it was about the service itself.
A tension we still see today in debates about the Postal Service?
Exactly. And once the closure was decided, the unions were critical in helping those displaced KCK workers figure out their options, reassignments, relocation benefits, that sort of thing.
Which brings us to the work itself. You hear about postal work being tough, but what did that actually mean at a place like the KCK in D.C.?
It's incredibly physically demanding, often in ways people don't realize. Think about it. Constantly lifting heavy mail sacks, moving bulky packages, hour after hour of repetitive sorting motions.
Day in, day out.
Right. And across the entire USPS, musculoskeletal disorders, MSDs, are a huge issue.
Like strains, sprains, back problems.
Exactly. They account for something like 25 to 30% of all recordable industrial accidents for postal workers. It's often cumulative wear and tear from awkward postures, forceful movements, repetition, year after year.
So it raises that question. How do you balance the need for speed and efficiency in mail delivery with protecting the workers' bodies long term?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
So what kind of specific injuries were common there? Probably similar to other plants.
Very likely, yes. You'd see a lot of back injuries, lower back pain. That comes from all the heavy lifting, sure, but also just long hours standing or even driving forklifts on those hard floors, sprains, herniated discs, that sort of thing.
Makes sense. What else?
Shoulder and neck strains were common too. Think about reaching and sorting mail constantly, rotator cuff problems, persistent neck pain.
And legs and knees.
Definitely. All that walking on concrete, pushing heavy carts, maybe climbing stairs if it was multi-level like KCK was described. Knee issues, leg pain.
And hands and wrists. Even with machines, there's still manual sorting.
Oh, yeah. Manual sorting, handling parcels that leads to things like carpal tunnel syndrome, tendinitis, repetitive stress injuries.
So the Postal Service must have been aware of these risks. What do they do to try and mitigate them?
They do try. USPS implements ergonomic interventions, things like adjustable workstations so people aren't straining, lift assist devices for heavy items, sometimes job rotation to mix up the tasks, trying to fit the job to the person, not the other way around.
But injuries still happen.
Despite best efforts, yes, injuries occur. And when they do, these federal workers, postal employees included, need to navigate the OWCP system.
OWCP, that's the Office of Workers' Compensation Programs.
Correct. It's the federal system for workers' comp benefits. But the challenge is that OWCP process can be really complex. It's bureaucratic, lots of forms, deadlines.
Sounds daunting for someone who's already injured and stressed.
It absolutely can be, which often leads workers to look for outside help just to get through it and get the benefits they're entitled to.
Okay, let's shift back a bit. Beyond the operational side, were there specific incidents or stories that really stand out from the KCKP and DC's time?
Well, the fight over the closure itself was definitely a big local story.
That 2007 public meeting must have been tense.
You bet. You had community members, union reps voicing very real concerns about losing good jobs, about potential impacts on local mail service. They were worried.
And USPS officials were sticking to the savings and efficiency line.
Pretty much. They argued consolidation wouldn't significantly degrade service and would save money. Local news even covered rallies where people protested the plan. It showed that real community tension.
But ultimately, the closure went ahead.
It did. The plant officially closed its doors in January 2010.
Now, you mentioned the human element, and sometimes that includes negative aspects too, right? Internal issues.
Yeah, and like any huge organization, the Postal Service isn't immune. There was a case, not at the KCK-PNDC itself, but nearby, involving USPS employees in the area.
What happened?
In 2025, a federal grand jury indicted 5 former USPS employees. They worked at a specific post office in KCK on North 51st Street.
Not the processing center, but a local post office.
Right, and they were accused of stealing stuff, Amazon return packages, other mail, valuables, mostly throughout 2023.
Wow. So internal theft is an ongoing challenge.
It is. The USPS Inspector General investigated that case. It served as a kind of cautionary tale locally about those internal vulnerabilities.
But it's important not to let that overshadow the dedication of the vast majority.
Right. Absolutely critical. You have to balance it with the stories of resilience. So many of those KCK PNDC employees, despite the disruption, transitioned to the KC Missouri plant or other roles. They adapted.
And the unions helped them navigate that transition.
Yes, the unions worked hard to protect their rights during that consolidation. It really speaks to the commitment of the workforce, even when facing major changes like their workplace shutting down.
And like we talked about, when injuries happen in that tough environment, getting help through OWCP can be hard. You mentioned specialized help. What does that look like?
Yeah, so navigating OWCP is tough. That's where specialized federal workers' comp clinics come in. There's one here locally, Restore Muscle and Joint, that focuses on this.
What makes them different from, say, just going to your regular doctor?
Their expertise is key. They have doctors who are specifically DOL OWCP credentialed. They specialize in federal injury cases, including postal workers.
So they know the job demands.
Exactly. They understand the physical stresses of sorting mail, lifting packages, all that. And maybe more importantly, they understand the process, the OWCP rules, the paperwork, what needs to be documented.
How does that help an injured worker practically?
It means they get comprehensive support. The clinic helps ensure all the medical documentation is thorough, meets OWCP standards. That makes claim acceptance much more likely.
And if a claim gets denied initially?
They can help with the appeals process, too. They guide workers through all the forms, CA1, CA7, whatever is needed, make sure the evidence is submitted correctly.
Because little mistakes can cause big delays, right?
Huge delays, or even denials. They can also coordinate specialized evaluations. Like if you hurt your shoulder lifting a mail sacks, they'll make sure you see the right specialist and get the right tests, documented in a way OWCP understands. Having a certified USPS injury doctor involved really strengthens the claim.
So it's not just about treatment, it's about navigating the bureaucracy.
Precisely. But they do provide treatment too, and it's tailored. Their staff who work with USPS employees know the common injuries, back strains, rotator cuff tears, knee problems, carpal tunnel.
And they offer rehab for those specific things.
Yes, physical therapy, other treatments, and crucially, because they know the OWCP system, they make sure all that necessary treatment gets authorized through the claim.
So the worker doesn't get stuck with surprise medical bills.
Exactly. That's a huge relief. It lets the worker focus on actually getting better, doing the physical AWP without worrying about the bills piling up or treatment getting cut off. They even offer, tips and tricks for dealing with OWCP, understanding your rights.
So clinics like Restore Muscle and Joint sound like they act as both a doctor and kind of an advocate.
That's a good way to put it. They're a medical partner and an advocate. It complements what the unions do on the labor side by making sure the injured worker gets the right medical care and the compensation they deserve smoothly.
Takes a huge burden off the employee, letting them focus on recovery.
Absolutely. Handling all that Department of Labor paperwork is a job in itself.
Okay, so looking back at our deep dive today, we've really covered the whole life cycle of this one facility, the Kansas City KSP in DC.
Yeah, from its operational days, the challenges, the consolidation.
To the people, the physical risks they faced every day, and the systems like OWCP and specialized clinics meant to support them when things went wrong.
And the story of this one specific place, KCK PNDC, really tells a larger story, doesn't it, about essential public services.
How so?
Well, it reminds you that behind every letter, every package, every delivery system we rely on, there's this incredibly complex machine running.
Logistics, technology.
But also immense human effort, and sometimes, as we saw, a real human cost. It's often hidden from view.
So a final thought to leave folks with. What is this story, the KCK closure, the focus on worker well-being? Tell us about that constant balancing act.
Yeah, the balance between efficiency, embracing new technology, and the very real human impact within these huge, vital organizations like the Postal Service.
And maybe how understanding these local stories, like the one in KCK, helps us appreciate what those frontline workers actually do for us every single day.
Definitely something to think about next time you hear the mail truck